over the course of the coming weeks and months. There were a lot of promises made in this campaign, and they were very high-priced promises. The reality of $80 oil and a government that hasn't been able to balance the budget at $100 oil makes us question what is it they're going to do when they have to deal in a reality of $80 oil. So I think that there is an absolute need for the Wildrose Party to be on the scene with a strong voice talking about fiscal sanity. Because if we don't do it, no one else will. That being said, I know that there's a lot of speculation about whether or not I'm the right leader to lead the Wildrose into the next election. I have the fire in my belly to do it. I want to do it. But the way things work in our party is that our members get to decide these things. As you may know, I got a 90% mandate from my members last year in my leadership review. Under our Constitution, I don't have to face another leadership review until after the next election. But I think it's important for me to know that going forward as leader of this party, members behind me. And so I've asked our party president, Dave Yeager, to put on the agenda to ask our members if they do want to vote on a leadership review at our upcoming AGM. It'll be in Red Deer on November the 13th and 14th. I invite our members to come. Not only that, we are going to do a full review of the campaign. We know that even though we ran a great campaign, there's always things that we can improve. We want to be able to do a full review of that. And in addition, we have to talk about who we are as a party and what is it we want to accomplish on a go forward. It's very clear from what I've heard from my members already, that they feel that we don't have the right balance between talking about what the other guys are doing wrong and what we would do right. Opportunity to give that full feedback to me and the party leadership about what it is that we need to do on a go forward. So that's what I have asked for my party president to do coming up. And I'm very hopeful that our members will give me the mandate to go forward, because I think that we have great things that we can accomplish together. But that being said, you can only lead if people are willing to follow. And with all of the speculation out there, I have to say that I will leave it to our members to give me that mandate, and look forward to seeing the result when we get together in a couple of weeks' time. So with that, happy to take your questions.
Do you feel, though, even though you're asking to review the
Last couple of hours, I guess it's only been, I suppose, 12 hours or so since the results came in. But that being said, when you have the kind of speculation swirling on every pundit and columnist, you can't just ignore that. And with all due respect to Don Braid and Rick Bell, who I admire a lot, I'm not going to let them decide whether or not I should stay on as leader. It is going to be up to my members to decide whether or not I should stay on as leader. And so that's what I'm going to submit to our members, is if they give me the mandate, I'll absolutely go forward with full fire in the belly to take on this government in the next general election.
Danielle, even though you weren't a candidate last night, how much personal responsibility do you take in the result?
I have to take responsibility in the result. When you look at what happened in the elections result last night, although we came very, very close in West, and we knew that West was the one feasibly that we had the best chance of winning, I think we'd also hoped that we had a good chance of winning Elbow. I think most people recognize that taking on a premier and taking on an incredibly popular former mayor, that those two ridings were probably out of our reach. But I think most people did anticipate that we would be able to do very well in West and in Elbow. And I have to say it was disappointing that we came just short of West, and disappointing that we came in third place in Elbow. So there is obviously something that we have to figure out about our messaging and the way we present ourselves and the way that we campaign to give confidence to urban voters in Calgary and Edmonton that we'll be able to represent their interests. I think the fact that we essentially got the same level of popular vote in this election as we did in the last election, without the same controversies swirling around. I mean, you may recall in the last 10 days of the general election campaign, there were a lot of things that brought our vote down. We didn't perceive that there were any of those factors in this election campaign. So we do have to do some soul searching to find out why it is we didn't gain ground. And as party leader, I have to take responsibility for it, which is why I think I want to put it to our members to come to the AGM. Let's go through the campaign, do the debrief. Let's talk about the vision for Alberta that Wildrose is putting forward. Let's talk about why it's so important that we're here to be an alternative to Albertans, and the only alternative capable of being able to form government. And then let's talk about whether or not I'll be the leader to lead them forward in the general election.
90% last time. Would anything under 90% be
Well, I think 77% seems to be the kiss of death. So I would say that you probably need more than 77% to be able to stay on as party leader. And that's what I would be looking for. I'd be looking for a firm mandate from my members to continue. Not really. I mean, whenever, there's always a balance when you're going into a campaign, when you're recruiting good people to run for you. You want them all to believe that they can win every single riding. And so there is a balance as a leader in trying to be optimistic and confident without being unrealistic. And I have to say that I think that, as we saw yesterday, West was very winnable. We had only lost it by, I think, in the end, 350 votes. Elbow should have been winnable as well, especially with the three-way vote split that was going on there. And so we've got to analyze what it is we could have done to be able to make to have been able to win those two. I think if we had won at least one, then we wouldn't be having this conversation today. If I'd managed to convince 350 more people to come out and vote in Calgary West, I think people would have looked at that as a victory for us. So it's a very shy of a victory, but in the end, people look at what your seat count is in the legislature, and we didn't increase.
Premier Prentice said that Albertans chose optimism and positiveness over negativity. Obviously, you felt that you and other opposition parties ran a very negative campaign. Do you think that might have been an issue?
Well, we know that there was somebody running a negative campaign against us in the last weekend of the campaign as well, doing a robocall. A very homophobic robocall to try to suppress the vote. So I have to say that dirty tactics were involved in this campaign, and I'm disappointed by that, and we were the victim of that. That being said, I mean, I have heard from our members that they want to hear a lot more about the positive things that we would do right in our vision for Alberta, and a lot less about what the other guys are doing wrong. I think looking at the results, especially in the 3 ridings that the Premier did not run in, the fact that the majority of people in those ridings voted not to have a PC representative, they voted for some other party, I think is telling. I think what that shows, especially since those ridings typically had 50% or more, sometimes over 60% of the popular vote, shows that people aren't entirely sure that they want this party to continue governing them. So it's incumbent upon us to find out what it is that we can do and say to convince Albertans that we're the right choice. I think that we've made the case that this party does not deserve to have the kind of mandates they've had in the past. But I think we need to make sure that we're doing more work to make the case about why it is they should vote for us. And that's going to be some of the soul searching that we do at our AGM in November.
Why do you think so many people don't come out to vote? 65% of people, I mean, are they happy enough that they don't feel the need?
I think there is something to the fact that the reality of $80 oil has not set in yet. It's not set in the psyche of this government, and I don't think it's set in reality in the day-to-day experience that people have. But we all know what happens when we have a slowdown in the patch, and the kind of impact that it has on housing prices, the impact that it has on the job market, the impact it has on tax revenues. We don't know how long this is going to last, but I have to tell you, all of the analysts are looking pretty gloomy. There is going to be a lag in how we deal with it. The fact of the matter is we've got a government that was ignoring the problem for the last 7 years. They've been running multi-billion-dollar deficits. We're at $11 billion worth of debt. And we've got a number of multi-billion-dollar promises on the table without any real plan for how to pay for them without going into deeper debt. So that, to me, makes the case for why you need a strong voice in the legislature and a strong party willing to talk about these things, focus on the finances and focus on how we're going to fix it. Because this is going to be the topic, I believe, that we'll have to find some solutions for when we go into the next election campaign, and Wildrose will have solutions.
Danielle, were you a bit surprised that how quickly the events of the recent past has seemed to have faded from memory? I mean, I was out on just Saturday with both the PC and the Wildrose Canada and Calgary West, and both of them agreed on only one thing, that there wasn't any anger. There was very little anger at the doors.
Yeah.
As there was, for instance, in 2009 when there was a by-election with Premier Stelmach.
Yep.
So are you surprised at how quickly the events of only a few short months ago seem to have just drifted away?
I would say one of the things that I love about Albertans is how forgiving they are and how willing they are to give someone a chance. I think that's what we're seeing with this new premier, but I think that that's something that will work in our favor as well, that in 2016 it'll be our chance. And that same kind of attitude that maybe it is time to give another party an opportunity to govern after 45 years of the same government. I think it could actually work in our favor. It didn't work in our favor yesterday, but again, I have endless optimism in Alberta's attitude towards giving newcomers a chance. We have a history of doing this with the UFA, who took out the Liberals in 21, and the Social Credit, who came in 1935, and then of course the Progressive Conservatives, who came in 1971. And in all of those cases, it was a collective decision to just move on. And I think Albertans will be prepared to do that, but they have to have a party that is capable of being able to win seats in rural Alberta, northern Alberta, central Alberta, southern Alberta, Edmonton, and Calgary. And at the moment, there's only one party that can do that, and that's Wildrose. That's why I feel so strongly that we've got to have this rejuvenation and this re-examination at our AGM in November and come out of it united with the plan for how we're going to move forward and put that vision towards Albertans in the 2016 election.
You said that the pundits have been saying this and did you hear anything from anyone inside the party after last week's results? Have you been hearing whispers in the party?
The question is that you often know that when the commentary is out there, it can begin to raise doubts. And I want my caucus to know and our members to know that I respect their decision on this, that if they want to do a review of my leadership and make the decision on whether or not I'm the right person to lead them forward, I welcome that. Because if it's not me, then it'll be someone better than me and somebody that I would be more than happy to support. So I just think that you cannot ever be afraid of facing your membership, and you can't ever be afraid of having them ask the tough questions and render that judgment. Ultimately, in a grassroots party, you only serve at the pleasure of your members and with the support of your caucus. And so I just wanted to make sure that our members knew that I respected their decision to be able to make this decision. If I hadn't made this, if I hadn't asked the president to do this, they wouldn't have had that choice until after the next election. And it seemed to me that we need to have this debate and this discussion. I'm very hopeful and confident that they'll make the choice to have me lead them into the next general election, because I can tell you I'm ready for the fight.
When did you make the decision to ask for the leadership review? Was it this morning?
It was this morning. Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations. We did a debrief. I did a number of radio shows this morning with some fairly intense questioning. And then we had a debrief on our campaign call. I contacted our party president, spoke with a couple of members of caucus, and just asked them what their opinion was on what I should do. And this just seems to me the right way to go about it. I got voted in through a referendum of our members, a general vote of our members. I got a mandate twice from our members to continue on. Seems to me that since I've had two opportunities now to contest elections, both of them having not gone the way we planned, it seems to me that this is a good opportunity for my members to make that choice once again.
Do you think Mr. Apprentice's bad expenditure of Al's script? I mean, he's either done it or he's gone his way.
Yes, I do. I mean, I think nobody wants to continue fighting old ghosts, and nor do we. We felt like this was an opportunity for Albertans to render a judgment on the misdeeds and misbehavior of the past, and they did. And so we move on and we look towards the future of what we have to hold the government to account on now. And there's lots to hold them to account on. As I've said before, the reason I ran for political office in 2009 and ran for the leadership of this party are the same reasons and problems that we have today. The fact that we've got a government that can't balance the budget, that has blown through virtually all of our resource revenue without saving any of it for the future, and has no plan to how to manage it on a go forward. We've got a government that has systematically mismanaged our healthcare system to the point where it cannot deliver the healthcare we want and need it when we want and need it. And we have a legislature that is dysfunctional because most of the PCMLAs don't have the ability to stand up for their constituents. Those are all the same reasons today why we need to have a Wildrose party and a Wildrose government. So for me, it's just as important for us to make sure that we've got that strong alternative.
How do you feel about
now, after all of that scandal, how can you expect to win in the future? This was kind of your guys' moment to take that, to use what has happened. I mean, after all, Alison Redford is one of the most vilified politicians.
Well, if I had the choice of the four ridings I would have liked to see Jim Prentice contest, I would have probably chosen Highwood and Strathmore Brooks and Little Bow, and Old Didsbury Three Hills. If I'd had my choice, and I think you would have had a different outcome. Fact of the matter is we had to fight in the ridings that they chose. And they chose 4 ridings, 3 of which had historically represented premiers. If you look at Calgary West, that was where Lougheed began it all. And then look at Calgary Elbow. We had 2 premiers represent that, Klein and Redford. Look at Whitemud. We had 2 premiers represent that, Getty and Hancock. And now, of course, we've got Mr. Prentice in Foothills. So they chose Tory strongholds on purpose, ridings that had been PC almost their entire history, some going back to 1967. So that's why we went into it with very modest expectations about potentially being able to win one. Unfortunately, we fell 350 votes short of that. But I think that the fact of the matter is we need to be able to make significant strides in Calgary and Edmonton if we're going to be able to be a credible force to form government. We know that in the rural ridings, it's basically a 2-way race between us and the PCs. We know that in some of the mid-sized cities, a few of them are a 3-way race, but most of them are a 2-way race. It's really Calgary and Edmonton that are going to be key battlegrounds in the next election. So we've got a lot of work to do to make sure that we understand some of the factors about why we lost. But I don't look at these 4 ridings as the be-all and end-all that some of the pundits do, but I do still think it's important for me to get that mandate so that I know going forward that my members back me.
How do you feel about the fact it seems to be the bar to replace the government is very high in Alberta? I mean, there's been 4 premiers who have been thrown out by their own party, and yet here they still are.
Yep.
So, I mean, how do you feel about the fact that, I mean, I'm sure you've heard this phrase, many people have said this, only in Alberta would this happen, you know, that in other provinces there probably would have been a change of government. Of
Yeah.
course, we've had 4 premiers in recent memory have all been tossed out by
Yeah.
their own party.
Well, and the only...
How do you feel about the bar being that high to actually hit the eject button?
Well, and the only one that left in the right way was Mr. Klein. Mr. Klein submitted to a leadership review of his members and didn't get the number that he wanted. The other 3 were all ousted by some backroom deal. And I think that says something about the party, and that's part of the reason why I'm asking our members to give me a renewed mandate. But the fact that we have had 4 premiers now in the space of the time that I've been leader of the Wildrose, the kind of turmoil that is created in government. Not only do you have 4 premiers, but each premier brings in a new configuration of ministries and then brings in new ministers. There are ministries that have not had a stable hand for in some cases, even as long as a year. And there have been some very serious, it's no wonder we've got serious issues in healthcare, in education, in dealing with the flood response, because if you don't have that kind of consistency, you're just not going to be able to move forward. So these are, again, the reasons why I am very optimistic that once the glow of the honeymoon wears off this yet another new premier, the same old problems are going to become realized, and it's going to need a strong opposition to point them out and be able to offer that alternative, and that's what Wildrose is. All right.
What do you make of the Alberta Party finishing second in Melbourne?
It was, I think that was a surprise as well. I think, but again, and congratulations to Greg Clark for running such a strong campaign there to be able to finish second. But if you look at the results in the other 3 ridings that they ran in, they barely placed. That again convinces me that Wildrose is needed more than ever. It's not that we don't need a multitude of voices in the legislature or on the provincial stage, but we absolutely need a political party that is capable of contesting and winning seats in every part of the province. And I think the NDP finishing second in Edmonton, but having virtually no showing anywhere else, demonstrates again that they may not be that party. The Alberta Party may be able to contest some seats and be successful in Calgary, but doesn't appear to have the resonance in Edmonton. I think that we need to continue to work on building what we have, and ensuring that every Albertan has the opportunity to vote for another party in the next election. So that's part of the reason why we need to do the soul searching and make sure that we are doing everything we possibly can to be that government in waiting.
Are they one-trick pony?
There is, I guess that will remain to be seen. The question about what the progressives do is really something to ask the progressive parties. It's getting pretty crowded over there on that side of the spectrum. You've got the progressive conservatives, the liberals, the NDs, the Alberta Party, and I think the Greens as well. And I think that what we should observe from this last election is that even when there's a consensus not to vote for the PCs, which I think there was, if you're only getting 34 or 40 or 45% of the vote, it means the majority of people don't want the progressive conservative option. The more you split that vote, the easier it's going to be for the progressive conservatives to slip in. And I think that's the story probably of what happened in Calgary Elbow. How that gets sorted out, I really don't know. In the western provinces of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia, they've really only got two parties that contest elections, one a progressive option and one a conservative option. Alberta, I think, remains quite unique in having 6 options contesting most of the seats. So how that shakes out, I think we'll have to see after the next election. But I thought it was I think it was a very credible showing from Mr. Clark in that campaign. Thanks, everyone.